Hi and welcome to my channel. So I'm going to go through these 25 flowers that gave me really a wow factor in the garden, and I'm going to go through them through the seasons. So I've split them up into the seasons in which they flower, and also the reasons that I've chosen these particular flowers. So the first one that I've chosen is the tulip. So this is in the spring section. I'll start with spring. Tulips are such a bright addition to the spring garden, and they're so very popular. They look beautiful whether they're in a single or just one or two blooms in amongst other flowers, or whether they're planted in a mass planting. They're just a truly beautiful, colourful addition to the spring garden. They can be treated as an annual in my climate, zone 9 in New Zealand, or they can be left in the garden to flower subsequent seasons. I've started thinking about lifting my tulips and seeing how they perform with a season of rest put away in the garage. So that's my plan this year. I'm a bit late. I have not lifted my tulips. My plan is to do that and replant them and check them over and then replant them and see what happens. So it's a season by season experiment for me with tulips, because they definitely don't perform so well in the second year. The second flower is the aquilegia, and I haven't grown a lot of this, but I bought the seed a couple of years ago of this particular one. It's called Winky Double Red, and it's just exquisite. So I'm enjoying that coming up each year. It's also throwing seedlings, and they seem to be coming through true to type. So I'm loving that. And I did grow some aquilegia from seed, another variety of mixed, but I've yet to see those flowering. Well, the daffodils, no one can go past daffodils in the springtime. So I have several varieties. I've got the early flowering ones that flower right through from midwinter, really. So I've got quite a few groups of those, and then the larger daffodils come into flower in the springtime. So I couldn't leave out daffodils. I have them scattered all around the garden, and I guess for me, the joy of those is that for most of the time they can stay in the garden. Maybe need dividing after a few years and just checking over. After maybe 3 or 4 years, they'll stop flowering prolifically if they get too crowded. So that's the daffodils. They had to be on the list. This saxifrage, I always wait impatiently for this to flower in the springtime. I see the buds coming up, and it's just a dear little ground cover border, front of the border plant. It doesn't grow terribly fast, but it looks pretty just popped in with other plants. Particularly, I have it in front of my lamb's ear and also in with my black mondo grass, and I just love it with those. And some of it's with some hickory. So sometimes it's about how you combine these plants with other things in your garden, just make them stand out really and provide that wow factor. So that's the saxifrage. The bleeding heart is quite a showstopper in the spring. Sometimes I've thought I've lost it, that I don't have it in the garden anymore, and then all of a sudden it springs up almost out of nowhere and begins flowering. So I have some small seedlings in my garden, and I give away a lot because it seems to pop up here and there. But my larger plants grow quite quickly and flower for quite some time, really, once they're a larger size. And the green foliage is quite different, and it's quite it's a fragile looking foliage, but it lasts through into almost midsummer before it starts to brown off and die down in the heat of the summer and pop up again next spring. So it's a really pretty little flower and an unusual one, which is always good for providing the wow factor. The sixth one I've chosen is a clematis or clematis. I have two of these, as I've named them, and once again another one that I look forward impatiently to flowers turning up on the vines. So clematis, the reason I've chosen this is probably for its for the way it weaves itself in amongst my roses, which are still probably not quite flowering when the clematis, or maybe just in the early stages of their flowering when the clematis decides to send out its flowers. So I do love the way you can use it to weave it amongst other plants and climb through other roses and or even shrubs. So it's always a nice addition to have. It does need a little bit of a shady root around the bottom, which I've probably lost a couple already because I've left it exposed to the hot sun too much. They like a good lot of watering and a little bit of shade around that root system. Well, you'll notice a little bit of a change in the daytime. It's now nighttime. The daylight's gone because I missed out one of my video pieces. So I must have thought I was recording and I was not. So this is the rhododendron, another springtime flower which I think makes a big difference to the garden, and a lot of people have very big rhododendrons in their huge gardens. But because mine's small, my rhododendrons are quite small, and I'm hoping to be able to keep them trimmed so that they remain a tidy little shrub that doesn't grow much more than the metre or so that they are now. So that's another springtime plant that I really enjoy seeing come into bloom in the spring, and enjoy all the flowers that are around it, including the pink lupins and other things that I've planted around these rhododendrons. The hippeastrum, or amaryllis as some people call them, I have about 3 or 4 different colours. The last couple of years since I repotted them all, they seem to not be all flowering as I would like, so I'm having to be pretty patient. But this one that you see is called Papillon, and there's another white one which I'll look up the name for. So I'm going, yes, I'll search out the photos. And so these are very dramatic flowers, and they sit in the corner of my patio, and I just love to look at them as I walk inside, and they always bring comment from people because they're so large and so beautiful and unusual. Well, that's the last of the spring section, and then I'll go on to, what's the next one? My lupins. Wow, I never used to grow lupins, but this one, called My Castle, I ordered from seed 2 years ago, and I've got them dotted around my garden, and as they come into flower at the end of the springtime, they have carried on. It's midsummer here now. They show no signs of stopping, and in fact I think will carry on, from memory, will carry on right through most of the summer, as long as they're deheaded and staked so that the wind doesn't snap the blooms off, which it can do very easily. I'm finding that that's a beautiful addition to my my pinks and blues and whites in the garden. Next is the Californian poppy. I hadn't grown this before. I saw the flower Thai silk, it's called. I saw that in the seed catalogue, and it looked so pretty in its colourings and dainty. I thought I'd give it a go. So that's been a wonderful little early summer flower, and it carries on right through the season as long as it's deheaded. And once those seed pods arrive, and if they're left on, then I notice that it quite quickly stops flowering. So I'm just enjoying how those little flowers open up in the sunlight, and it's a really nice addition to my low ground cover plants at the front of the border.
Hello. Yes, okay. There you go. We say hello to you too.
Well, anyone who's been watching my channel at all will know that lamb's ear is one of my favourites. I have it dotted around the garden in about 5 or 6 places, and I love pairing it up with other plants that flower in the pink shades and pick up that little bit of pink that's in the top of the lamb's ear flowers. But aside from that, when it's not in flower, it just, the grey and silver of its foliage just combines with other plants that are darker in a really way that I really like. So I'll always have lamb's ear, even though at the end of the winter it needs quite a bit of a clean out and gets a bit mushy underneath and needs a good clean out. It's easy to control, can be just pulled away easily from the soil. They're a really lovely plant to have, and I find it really easy to manage. And some people cut off the flowers because they have no use for that plant flowering in with their other plants. So that's another choice that you have. Selectrum is next on the list. It's a very dainty, tall, dainty flower. It grows, the one I have at the moment is probably over 5 foot tall, because I have to look up to see the top of it. So I just love this, especially cutting little pieces for flower arrangements, because it's got a lovely airy fairy look about it, and I love the little dainty flowers on it. And even the little buds are actually more colourful, because when the flower comes out, the little yellow part in the middle sort of tones down this lovely little purple ball that the buds make up. So it's a very pretty flower, and I have it flowering amongst my purple or mauve verbena, and it's looking pretty good. It's rather slow to develop. I have, I think, 2 stalks coming up from the main plant, and I've had that plant probably 6 or 7 years. So it's not a quick plant to develop, but if put in the right place and coming up in the height that it does, it can provide quite a lovely spray of flowers and amongst other things if you choose wisely. Poppy is next, and for seed sowing I've chosen several varieties, but one of them mother of pearl and the other one is angel's mix are the 2 that I've tried probably sowing for the last couple of years, and they have self-seeded and they came up again this year. So, and I've got several others that I want to try that I have bought but not got around to sowing them yet. And it's probably getting a bit late now because it's midsummer now. So, but poppies I love that they flower for so long if you dehead them, and they have so many flowers on the bushes. They just look lovely floating above other plants in the garden, and that the range of colours that you can buy is quite excessive. So you've got lots of choice from white right through the pinks and yellows, I think, yeah, and lovely different shades and different mixes of colour as well. They have lovely detail in the poppy flower. Number 13 out of the 25 is Astrantia, and I've just discovered this plant in the last couple of years, and I bought 2 small plants from a nursery online, and I'm really thrilled with what those little flowers look like. They are exquisite in their form, and I love taking close-ups of them because they're just so unusual and they look lovely in the garden. Once again, another flower that pops up and spreads out into a little spray that really looks lovely amongst other flowers because you can sort of see through it. It doesn't provide a barrier at all for the flowers that are behind it. I quite like plants and flowers like that. The scabiosa is next. Scabiosa, that's how I say it. I don't know if that's the right way. Anyway, that's next. And it's been a bit of a success really in my garden. It was supposedly an annual, but I have planted it in a sunny spot along the side of my house, which gets very little weathering in the winter. So it really doesn't get frost. It really doesn't get much rain. In fact, I have to water after rain because this part of the garden really doesn't get any water. So I've planted it along with some roses, which also need plenty of water, that are in the salmon shades, because this scabiosa is called Salmon Queen, and it's been absolutely gorgeous. Its flowers are beautiful from the time they're a little bud right up until they seed, really, and then they've got this lovely little oval hairy seed pod, which I cut off because I want it to keep flowering, which it has right through from when it first starts flowering. Well, I don't know when it started flowering because it's never stopped since it grew, and now it's I would think well over, I would say up to 6 foot tall now, up through the roses, up through my salmon coloured roses. And it's just beautiful. So I couldn't leave that off the list. It's flowered all winter and it's still going. And I just go out every couple of days, cut those seed heads off, and there's more buds coming. I just don't know if it'll ever stop. So that's Scabiosa, Salmon Queen. Now we're getting through the summer ones, and it's always quite a long list because there's so much that will flower through the summer. So the next one is my little delphinium, which is called Hunky Dory, and I also bought this from seed. And because it was a hybrid, it was suggested that the seedlings that grew from this would not be the true blue that this one is. However, most of mine that have reseeded, and there's been a lot of them, are that same blue. So, and there've been a couple that have been a pale blue and maybe some white into almost pink. So I don't mind if that happens, but I'm delighted to see that this lovely blue is continuing, and every season it just keeps sending up more little seedlings. So that had to be on my list of wow factor flowers. Next on the list is the cornflower. Now, I'm not really sure why it made this list. I think because the one that I've had the most success with has been this little dark blue one. It springs up sometimes in too many places, but it's easy to pull out. It flowers prolifically. It's got so many little buds on it when it starts flowering. I do dehead it, but I don't think it's really necessary. I think the flowers will just keep coming. It is inclined, this is why I don't know why it's made the list, it's inclined to get a bit of mildew later on in the season, but to be honest, it's sending out seedlings that keep coming up, so it's not difficult to pull out the ones that have aged a bit and then enjoy the ones that are coming up afterwards. So not sure how long I'll keep growing this from seed, but it's very easy to grow from seed, and it just provides some lovely blue, and blue is lovely to have in the garden. Makes a huge difference to how the garden looks if you've got some blue flowers, and it has all the other colours that I enjoy, the purples, the whites, the mauves, and pinks. So it does come in a lovely colour range. So it's worth having a go with cornflower, I think. The sweet peas are next, and I grow them every year. This year I didn't plant my seeds until the early spring. Normally I would plant them in the autumn and probably have pretty much the same success rate, but maybe a bit better success rate in the autumn. I plant whatever varieties I can get my hands on, really. I don't gather seeds from them. I usually buy extra packets as soon as I run out. I'll just buy a couple more varieties. So the thing I love about sweet peas is their scent, of course, and I keep picking them so that they flower as long as possible. It seems to me that with sweet peas, they sort of have a life, they seem to have a lifespan, and it doesn't matter if I keep picking them and keep watering them, they don't last, the plant doesn't last forever. It seems like it's got a certain length of time built into it, and once that comes, it dies off, and that's the end of it. So I'm thinking that it might be a good idea to try succession sowing the sweet peas. So whether I ever do that, I don't know. But at the moment, in the middle of summer, they are just starting off because I planted them so late, sowed them so late. They're just starting off, so I've started picking bunches of sweet peas to bring in or to give away. So they're quite a lovely addition to the summer garden. Five more plants in the summer garden section. The next one is Dara. Now I've only grown this once, which was last year. I tried to nurse them through the winter. Didn't work too well, but I did manage to get 2 plants. And I absolutely love this plant, this flower. It grew huge, very tall, probably in the wrong place, but it was just gorgeous, and I cut it for some of the bouquets that I made to give away, and also cut it for inside. It didn't flower for long, and as the summer went on, once it had finished flowering, it went brown, and it wasn't a bad thing. It sort of went browny and rusty shades of autumn, which I thought was still quite pretty in the garden. So I think next time I try it, I looked for seedlings this year and none had come up. So I still have some, which I might still try this season. And hopefully, if I let it self-seed, I hopefully will get some more plants next season that way. So I will be keeping on with this plant and maybe try some other parts of the garden where I can put it in the background, and it'll be lovely. Lilies, you cannot go past lilies. And I think I love them because you can pop them anywhere and they will brighten up any part of the garden in the summer. They go beautifully with roses in amongst your perennials, anywhere where you want to pop them. And you really don't have to have a lot of lilies, just one or two or three in a space, and they just change the whole look of the garden. So I wouldn't be without my lilies. I am very careful. I've read extensively about the danger of lilies to cats, which most people don't seem to really know about. And I think veterinary people would prefer we didn't grow them at all, because the pollen and other parts of the lily are quite dangerous for cats. That's a little negative piece, but I sort of felt I had to put that in. Next one is the hydrangea. I have a blue one, which has featured in some of my videos and some of my weekly top blooms of the week. This one I'm showing you today is called Diamond Rouge, and it starts off cream, in a deep cream colour, which it is at the moment, and then starts turning into pink. And the only issue I have with it is at the moment is that it no sooner completely goes pink, the flower head, when it starts to brown off and die. So I'm not sure if there's anything I can do about that, but I'm hoping it did change a little bit last season and became pink a lot quicker and stayed pink for longer. So I'm hoping that as the seasons go on, that will happen more and more. So I'm loving that hydrangea. In fact, I have taken some cuttings of that, which I intend to give away. There's a couple of people that have their eye on one of those. Next in the summer section is a lobelia cardinalis, and it's a perennial lobelia, and it's one of my favourite plants. I have it flowering. I don't use red much in my garden, but this is something I will always include in my garden, and it flowers in amongst my reddish coloured flaxes, and I really love it. It's a plant that enjoys being damp, so it's apparently a good one for growing along the edges of ponds. So that's my lobelia, and it also has increased over the years, but not too fast. It's very, very manageable and very pretty. I love the foliage of it, and you don't get a lot of flowering plants that have that lovely deep burgundy foliage. So this is one. The last one in the summer range is the cosmos, and I've grown several different packets of seeds, different varieties, and once again I'm a bit slow this year because I seem to be spending lots of time videoing and not a lot of time in the garden and seed sowing. So I need to balance that off a bit and get into my seed sowing. But anyway, it's not too late for cosmos. You can succession sow that from after your last frost, really, and it'll do just fine and flower right through until, depending on your area, of course. We're in zone 9, so our summers are reasonably long and warm up until about, warm enough for the flowers up until March, April. So add 6 months to that for the Northern Hemisphere, which is what I do when I'm watching your garden videos. I'm always adding 6 months to the months that you give me. So that's the cosmos. Lots of a big range of colour and great for cutting, and a really good garden plant to fill, especially to fill your garden with colour if you haven't got much in the garden. So that's the cosmos. And a lot of those summer ones will carry on through into the autumn. But the autumn flower that I find the most useful in my garden has been the Michaelmas daisy, or the asters. So I've got 2 stands. One is a mauvey blue colour, and the other one is a wine colour, I think I'd call it, wine. So, and I'm loving those in the autumn. They provide a few dots of colour, and I will be splitting them up so that I can spread them around a bit through the garden. So that's the autumn choice. And there's one more flower in the 25, and it's my winter flowering Kaluna or heather. Now that's got a lovely mauvey pink flower. I only have it in one place at the moment, but I am planning on taking some cuttings of that, and I'll need to do that soon. But anyway, it's flowering all winter long and stays in flower into the spring. So that is a lovely addition to the winter garden, in amongst your early daffodils and things like Daphne and other coloured. I have a coloured hebe called Princess Leah. That's another one that I will compare with this particular heather that I have, and they will brighten my garden through the winter. So I'm always looking for something to provide me with contrast of colour, really. I don't mind if it's foliage, but this heather Kaluna is a lovely flower all winter long. I hope you found some of this useful and some surprises in there, and I hope you got some useful tips from this video. Thank you for watching.